The final game of 2024, the calendar year for the Philadelphia 76ers. They are in Portland to take on the Trailblazers on the second night of a back-to-back for the Trailblazers, sitting at 11-20 on the season, while the 76ers improved to 12-17 on the campaign. They try to continue their winning ways. Sixers winning 3 in a row. And how about Portland? 2 wins in a row for that squad there. So we break it all down with you here on the PHLY Sixers Pregame Show presented by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, Devon Givens with you. Bree, as well as we hang out with all of you. And we're always grateful to do so on the late night game 3 of this West Coast trip, or this road trip in general, game 2 of the West Coast portion. And Derek, we are in the final game of 2024 here for the Sixers for the calendar year against this Portland Trailblazers team, as again, trying to simply keep things going, keep the winning ways going, and an opportunity once again where you look at the schedule, a 6-game road trip. There are 2 of them this season for the Sixers. But this one in particular, because of the opponents, they are some very winnable games. And when you steal the first one against the Boston Celtics on Christmas Day, you certainly want to do so and take advantage of the ones in front of you, like they did in Utah, making us sweat. But again, here tonight against Portland, where this is a team that played last night, as young as they are, second night of a back-to-back, you want the Sixers to take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah, a couple things first right off the top. Kyle, I just want to say I appreciate those cherry blues that you had going on there. As a fellow computer geek, I appreciate some good mechanical keyboards.
Yeah, man.
I also, Devon, you mentioned that Portland had won 2 in a row. That's true. Before that, they had lost 8 of their previous 9. The last 2 wins have come against Utah and a Dallas team without Luka. So this is a very, very, very winnable game. It's good because January is a very tough month for the Sixers, but they have to capitalize on these opportunities. And this is certainly, depending on, we're all sitting here waiting to see who's in, who's out.
Yeah. Joel's in.
Oh, we just got the starting lineup: Maxey, Oubre, George, Caleb, and Embiid. So that
I was waiting for you guys to stop the damn preamble because you complimenting.
That's where those cherry MX keys were coming from as you were looking up. Yeah,
I was making sure people knew on Twitter and Blue Sky that Joel Embiid is in, but I didn't want to interrupt anyone who is already in the process of talking.
Yeah, no, I legitimately just saw that come in as I was wondering whether or not Joel would be in there. But no, that certainly increases their chances of winning this game. And like I said, this was a Portland team that Sixers should have every chance to go out there and have success. This is another team that they are a dreadful defensive team after having a lot of success. Portland was close to 500 after the first 15 or so games of the season, mostly on the strengths of their offense that has come back, reverted back to the mean. And now you just have a team that's struggling on both ends. And this is a squad that Sixers have a lot of success against, especially if they're going to have their heavy hitters, so to speak, in the lineup. They need to take advantage of this. Portland, struggling team, tail night of a back-to-back. You've got your big guys. You've got to get the win. No questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think for me, the big headline here in terms of the Portland guys is that they don't really have a lot of guys that I care about guarding on the perimeter, right? Like they just don't, right? Jeremy Grant is having one of his, I don't know if this is his best ever season, but he's having one of his best seasons ever shooting like 38% on good volume as well. But the rest of these guys, I mean, Simons is having a down year. Shaedon Sharpe has never been a shooter, is still not much of a shooter. Ayton plays a lot of minutes and is not a stretch big in basically any capacity. Tumani Kamara is like just about average. He's like a Caleb Martin in a normal year level shooter. Denny is right about average. Scoot is below average. Like they do not have guys who can draw you out. So to me, this is a game where Joel's impact as a rim protector should be pretty profound. And I think that it's going to be a lot of guys trying to attack him at the summit, trying to attack whether it's Yabusele, if Adembona potentially gets some minutes. And I think this is a good opponent to potentially throw him out there and maybe get him, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is, get his feet wet again a little bit. Then I think that's going to be the key to this game to me. It's an interior-based team, a team that is going to try to slash, going to try to score at the basket. they will get up a decent amount of threes. They're just not going to make them. And so the question to me is like, can they draw the Sixers out a little bit and then make it a little bit uncomfortable? And then when you get to that point and you can put some pressure on Joel as maybe not maybe a switch defender, but someone who's got to play up high and recover and do that sort of thing, that's going to be the test. But I think if you're Nick Nurse and you're the Sixers in this one, you're hoping that they kind of hit their number on the back of the proverbial baseball card from the 3-point line. And then that just allows you to simplify the game plan as the Sixers and just funnel everything in toward the middle of the floor. And that helps Joel. That helps Paul, helping in from the weak side. We've been talking a lot about his defense in recent weeks. He's coming off of a huge defensive performance in Utah with 5 steals, 4 in the first half the other night. And so if you can stop this team from hurting you at the rim, you basically can stop them, I think.
Well, this is where I get to provide the update, where I was just sitting around waiting for Kyle to finish talking. Jeremy Grant is out. He is not available. Now, with the way he has been playing, we can argue whether or not that is actually a loss. He is shooting 38.2% from the field so far this season, which is #dreadful.
That's basically his exact 3-point shooting number. In fact, that is his 3-point shooting number.
He's shooting the exact same from 2-point range and 3-point range, which on the one hand, good on him for making perimeter shots. On the other hand, there's the rest of the game going on as well. But certainly as a defensive presence that takes an already bad defense, takes away one of their real playmakers and rim protectors. So that is a bit of a loss there.
Yeah, he did play last night, scored 14 points in their win. They posted 6 players in double figures. Shaedon Sharpe with 23 to lead those guys. 4 did notch 20 overall. Jeremy Grant, though, 14 last night in their win, not playing again tonight. But as you bring up Paul George, Kyle, and we stick to Paul George, just trying to, once again, as we talk about the Sixers themselves as a unit, as a group overall, trying to find their way and keep their winning ways going. While his defense has been really, really good, the offense, as we talked about after the game, still leaving a lot to be desired for Sixer fans and, of course, for himself and for the Sixers in general. So what do you look for from him tonight to try to just get going? Would you like to see them try to get him going early? He got the first shot in the game on Saturday, and another opportunity for them to maybe try to get him going in those same spots a little bit earlier to get him some early touches to get those opportunities.
Yeah, but like I don't know that I want to force feed him. I think part of the reason that you bring Paul George here is that he's not someone that you have to be so deliberate about his offense, right? And I think what we saw the other night was a healthy mix of, hey, let him get a few shot attempts early, but also we're going to run some design looks. Again, I brought it up on the postgame show, and I went back and watched it. The simple action they ran to get him that open 3 on the left wing in the third quarter, I love that. Like, get him as many of those as possible. If you can get him 3 or 4 of those a game, maybe that's a little ambitious because teams will eventually react to the set that they ran there. Those are the shots I want him to get, right? Open, wing, and corner, catch and shoot threes. And I think that is a bread and butter shot. It should be a bread and butter play for these guys. I think tonight the key for him is just going to be, you're going to be able to mismatch hunt with him fairly easily, right? Like, the one thing that Jeremy Grant's absence from the lineup will help him is, like, they really don't have tons of great options, right? Like, Toumani Kamara's got some good size, but I think Paul can get by him. Denny is a good wing defender, or at least has been in the past, but I think Paul can credibly beat him. And then the other guys, like if he gets a matchup with Shaedon Sharpe, for example, and I don't expect Sharpe would start on him or play a ton on him, you can just shoot right over him. Like, there's a pretty decent size gap between those guys. And so I think this is a team that's exploitable in multiple ways. I also think that it's a lot of, young and developing players, or some of them aren't developing. They just are who they are as defenders, right? And they're not exactly –
some of them aren't developing. They're just not good.
They're just not good. I mean, look, Anfernee Simons is a good on-ball offensive player, right? But he's got a ton of weaknesses as a defender. And a lot of these guys are just not very attentive off-ball defenders. And so Paul's ability to operate as a cutter and move into space and play off of the Joel Embiid double teams that we know are going to come, that's how you can get him going, right? Just get him some easy layups and have him play within the flow of the offense. I'm not so concerned with like, well, they have to get Paul going. They have to force feed him. They have to do this. He's got to make shots, right? He's got to help himself. And I think we got into this trap a little bit with Tobias Harris, right? Where if he would go on an extended cold spell or cold stretch, a lot of the conversation would be, well, how do they get Tobias going and what do they do? And when you get into a mindset of like, how do we cater the offense more to the third player, the third most important guy of the big three? I just think you're reaching diminishing returns at some point. And certainly I have a lot more faith in Paul George to simply return to form and hit shots without having to do anything especially drastic to make that happen.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with that. Look, at some point, the guy who's been a great three-point shooter his entire career has to make perimeter shots. And I think when I sit there and I look at the quality of the shots he's getting real quality looks. And, the weakness of his offensive game right now is beating guys off the dribble. Maybe this is a matchup because they really don't have all that many good perimeter defenders or just good defenders in general, where you might give him the ball a little more than you normally would because he has a chance to get to spots that he otherwise would struggle to get to, and maybe seeing the ball go in will help his confidence. But I really do think, for the most part, the shots that he's been getting are good. And the volume of it aren't as much as it was before Joel was here. But as long as the quality is there, and as long as he's doing other stuff in terms of defense, in terms of rebounding, in terms of even facilitating, then the key is he's just got to make shots. And I 100% think he will. I don't need him to score 20 a night. I need him to get back on track from the perimeter. And, certainly, like I said, you run a couple things. Like at previous game, they ran a screen for him with Joel to get him a catch and shoot three. Sure, you run a couple of those, maybe early on to see if you can get him going. But I don't think you completely change your offense per se. And I think he will. I think he will get back on track. It's been a season-long shooting slump, but I don't think that will continue.
Yeah, and he's been getting good looks, as we have all said after these games. They're just not falling. But I would also say, though, that I would like for them to find him a little bit more in this particular game against these defenders, somewhere in that mid-intermediate type of area where he can work a little bit and shoot over those smaller defenders, get some shots to fall, and maybe that'll also help out when it comes to stretching it out to behind the three-point line. And he does get those looks on the catch and shoot, running around a screen from Joel Embiid or Yabusele out there on the floor, that maybe some of that intermediate stuff will help him in the long run of this game, of this 48 minutes of this game, where he gets some of those to fall and it opens things up a little bit from beyond the three-point line. The facilitating will be there. The rebounding will be there. The defense, the stellar defenses we've been playing, that will be there also. And if he can get out in the open floor, maybe he can get a couple that way also and finish in transition, just getting some shots to fall to open up things for him, where then you may see a different barrage. It's not changing the offense. It's just more of taking advantage of the situations and the opportunities that are presented. And if he is in that mid-range somewhere with his back to the basket, he loves that left side of the block. And if it's there, get him the basketball and let him go to work quick. Now, he has to go to work quick and not play around with the basketball where he's wasting too much time on the shot clock. But I would also like to see some of that intermediate stuff work out for him as well.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance, right? You don't want Paul George
to
end up. Yeah,
so,
you don't want Paul George to end up where just like, well, we're happy with the defense and the playmaking and whatnot, and kind of let him off the hook for what has been an uninspiring start to his career in Philly as a attacker, right? Like we all have much higher expectations for Paul than what we've seen from him on offense. I think it's just, they are playing pretty good basketball right now. They're winning. Yeah. The offense, while the numbers aren't necessarily the best at times, it at least looks coherent and it looks like they have a plan and it looks like they're executing a little bit better than they were in the, pretty recent past, right? So I don't want to get into a place where they're going away from things that are starting to work. I think the big key, Devon, if I were to say this needs to happen, and they have to do this with Paul, is they are going to have to force feed some more Joel and Paul stuff, like to get them more comfortable in just two-man actions and two-man sets to play off of one another and build those reps. I mean, every time we are at a Sixers practice, I feel like we see them doing something together, and they're working on some kind of whether it's Joel and him working on post touches and kickouts from there, or running through some drills together. They've been pretty tight away from the games, right, in terms of trying to get this right. So they're going to have to put some of that on the floor sooner rather than later. It is almost 2025. And the Maxey Joel stuff that we say every game, just hammer that. That's great. Like, they got to lean on it as a source of success, and they have to, just not let that fade from the playbook the way they do at times, but they have to maintain that while also kind of lifting up the Paul stuff. So that's not necessarily about getting Paul shots and getting in the ball in particular spaces. It's just about that feeling out process that Joel and Paul have both said, we got to go through this and we got to do it.
Did you? I saw this today. Paul George is shooting 18% on corner threes. If that sounds low, that's really low. Over the last 5 years, he shot 54%, 55%, 56%, 48%, and 44%. Remarkable consistency, remarkable numbers. He is shooting 18%. It's legitimately one of the worst corner three-point shooters in the league. So, yeah, certainly you want to get him going, but these are shots that, first of all, he's making less than almost like Matisse Thybulle last year might have shot more than 18%. I'm sure he did. Everybody shoots more than 18%. And he was one of the best in the world at this. I still just think eventually that's going to come.
It better.
Yeah,
to win, it better overall. Well, one guy we know can knock down shots from the perimeter, still doing so at a very, very high clip, is the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. Tyrese Maxey named the Eastern Conference Player of the Week for the second time in his career. For the week, he averaged some pretty darn good numbers: 32 points on 46% shooting, 4.7 boards, 8.7 assists, and 2.7 steals. He has been fantastic for the week of December 23rd to the 29th, and that also includes a big win over the Boston Celtics on Christmas Day. So, Derek, the guy, as we asked for him to pick up his scoring and his shooting once again, he has really picked it up as of late.
Yeah, he has. And that's, he is, we spoke last game where it felt like the first half was a little uneven, but throughout the course of this winning streak, he has had some really big moments in the fourth quarter. And you're starting to see that shot come back. You're certainly seeing that confidence in that shot come back. I don't know exactly how many threes he is averaging over the last couple of weeks, but it is a lot. And when he does that, he puts so much pressure on the opponent, both in that two-man game and even when he is operating by himself. And because of that, passing lanes are opening up. He's playing much better basketball all around. His defense has been outstanding over the stretch, and that's not represented there in those numbers, but I think he averaged like 3 steals per game over that week. And even more, you've just seen an uptick in his effort defensively this year has been really good. His communication this year has been better. His recognition and awareness defensively has been better. He is playing much better basketball over the last couple of weeks, certainly over the last week where he won that award. But he's playing great all around. Outside of a minute and a half stretch where he turns the ball over twice, he has been really good with the ball and taking care of it. He's playing great basketball.
Yeah, and I know that I expressed a lot of, let's say, annoyance after the Utah game, that he had a great close, but I was not too thrilled with how he played offensively leading into that quarter. But I would also say that's a game that represents a positive step forward compared to earlier in the year, right? Where he would get in a funk early in the game in a lot of those games and just never pull out of the tailspin. And so the ability and the confidence to have a up and down first 3 quarters and then really kill Utah down the stretch of that game, I think that is certainly a reflection of not just where he's headed, but where the team has been headed recently, right? Where he's been, if not the leader, certainly one of the leaders of this this push that they're making right now, to have that big performance against San Antonio after Joel gets ejected, obviously is great in the Christmas game. And so, look, the stats are there. The resilience is there. As Derek is saying, we have been super encouraged by how he's playing defensively this year. After I didn't think he got off to a great start there, right? I thought that he showed a lot of the same off-ball issues that he had in the past, and that was part of why they were in a big losing funk early on. But as he has stepped up and as he has shown as a leader of the team, this matters to me, and I'm committed to this. And I would add on top of this too, the rebounding has been pretty good at times, right? Where he's actively crashing the glass. And he told us one night after a game, part of that is because I want to get us in transition more. And I've talked about it with Nick. And some of that is on me to, we got to end this possession. I got to get the ball and try to just, go coast to coast or get us out in transition. So the attention to detail in a lot of different areas has been better. I still always want to see better from Tyrese as a playmaker, but undeniably is in an upswing right now. Looks a lot more like the guy I think we were hoping the Sixers would get this year. And so, this is a great opponent to try to continue that run. And as we march toward all-star territory and all the votes start getting put in on all that, certainly wouldn't hurt to have another good game and keep your star rising in that way.
Yep. Absolutely. On the 23 games of the season for Maxey, he's averaging 26, 5 assists, and 2 steals, which is a career high on the season for Tyrese Maxey when it comes to the steals. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was named Western Conference Player of the Week for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And as we have the final game of 2024 right in front of us against the Portland Trailblazers, I wanted to ask you guys just a few, and even in the chat, I know we have a post game, but probably easier before the game gets started to talk about 2024 and some of the moments, Kyle, that stood out for you for the 2024 season. If you want to exclude the playoffs, because we know what that was against the New York Knicks, exclude the playoffs, but just the calendar year.
I was going to say what stood out was the refs blowing that call at the end of game 2 and changing the series, right?
Yeah, it did.
No, look, I think it has been a very Sixers year, right? Where I think the highs have been very high, right? You get a 50-point Joel playoff game, Maxey at the Garden, and then you also get the lows, which is Joel somehow having Bell's palsy in the middle of a playoff series on top of a knee issue. You have the great offseason on paper, and then there are all the injuries. It's the roller coaster that is following this team, covering this team, for our people in the chat, rooting for this team. And look, I'll say this. They always keep it interesting, not always in a good way. Sometimes it's bad interesting, and it's, we can yell and we can get upset, but there is a shelf life on how much people want to hear that. But I think the good news is that it does seem to be, and I'm going to knock on every piece of available wood within an arm's length of me, it does seem like they're moving in the right direction. Like they're finding some steadiness, some competence, some cohesion as a team. And so going into 2025, we have what all of us kind of hoped or wanted, which is a team that's got a chance to beat good teams, to be fun to watch, to produce some exciting basketball. And we'll see where they end up at the end of the year. But yeah, I just think it's been a very Sixers year, for good, for better or for worse. And that's kind of where we're at. And on top of that, I enjoy being able to talk about it with you two as we navigate through all this together.
What about you, Derek? 2024, a very Sixers year. Some things that stood out in the very Sixers year for you.
No, look, Embiid scored 70. Embiid dropped 50 in the playoffs. Maxey had that incredible game 5. Embiid won a Olympic gold, and yet it still seems like pessimism reigns supreme. And you get that because they once again didn't advance to where you wanted in the playoffs. Embiid is injured, and the risk seems like it is higher than it has ever been. And Paul George got to Philly and forgot how to shoot. we changed the names, but it feels like all of the storylines remain the same in some incredible way. But I do think that now that we have finally ended our 3-month preseason, we're starting to see sort of like the shell of the team that we thought they were going to get. And I think we're rolling into 2025 on a look. When you're, what are they, 13 and whatever, you're not coming in on a high, but you're certainly you're ramping up towards being on a high, and ending the year on a ramp seems fitting as well.
12 and 17.
12 and 17.
Well, they're going for 13.
Yet.
Yeah.
They're going for 13. I was
more emphasizing the 17.
Yeah.
You were.
I was going to start with the Embiid 70-point game also on January 30th, where he just put on a clinic in that game. So I was going to begin there and go with the 50-point performance from Maxey, the playoff game 5 for him. The fact that they had the offseason that they did, which was really, really good, and seeing where they could go from there. Just a lot of good things, but also, as Kyle, you labeled it perfectly, as Sixers, a very Sixers year that it is. There are always good things for every organization, every professional sports team, but then there are those bad things. And with them being right there in that mix of winning every single season, there's always that other part of a Sixers year that makes it that very Sixers year. So those are the positive things, of course, that stood out to me, and just a number of bad things that happened with this basketball team, including losing in the first round of a playoff series for the 76ers. So we'll see if they can change things. Tyrese Maxey made the All-Star team. That was a pretty good thing, as you just talked about, going for year number 2 for him. So
now that you bring that up, Devon, you know what else was a really cool thing? And I know it's not an on-court thing. When Tyrese had that moment where they put together that kind of mini museum, for him,
sure.
The team did, like, that was as much as we get wrapped up in the game and the wins and losses and whatnot, for him as a person, for what he sacrificed and like the risk that he took on, right? That he could have gotten hurt, whatever could have happened. For him to get to have that moment, and then for all of us to get to share in that in some way through the video that was posted and whatnot. I thought that was one of the coolest moments of the year, I think. And I think that's something that basically everybody can say. Everyone was happy for Tyrese. You got to have that moment.
Absolutely. So good stuff. And 2025 ahead of us. This is bad to start. As Derek, you just tried to figure out whether it was 12 or 13. That's how bad it has been through 29 games, where they are still sitting at 17 losses, and it's not flipped the other way. Only way to go is up for them for 2025. And it starts, of course, on Wednesday, but it begins now by keeping the winning streak going and extending it to 4 games tonight against the Portland Trailblazers. Our buddy in the chat, Ash Monroe, he was great for 2024 because he would let us know the record with Embiid in and out of the lineups. And he said, post-game, the Joel stats are back. So
all right, let's go.
Some extended Embiid games. We get the post-game stats returning from Ash Monroe. Let's get to the pregame pick segment, brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Doing pretty good as of late. And we try to keep it going here tonight. Paul George, while the offense has not necessarily been there, he has hit the glass. He has assisted. So I went with the over. I thought it was an interesting number that they put it at 5.5 for the way that he has been rebounding the basketball. So I went with the over of the 5.5 rebounds. And for Caleb Martin, the under of 16.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Very interesting number. That's a plus 230 there for a same game parlay at Bet365. 16.5 points, rebound, and assists. He's right around 13, 14 on average. So went with the under on this one. Doesn't mean he won't impact the game, but he can get his 9 points, his 4 boards, his 2 assists, and still be under that number. If you're looking to go with that number again, use code PHLY365 when you sign up to Bet365. Whatever the moment, is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text
Sorry, I was checking my phone so I could put in the Gambling Givens parlay of the night.
I will say,
I
Devon,
appreciate that
if they were playing Boston, there is no way you make that bet. He might make 17 threes, much less have.
Exactly. Not a chance. Not a chance. He clears that in the first half, no doubt about it. This pregame show is presented by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. You're staying in the house, you're watching the game, you might as well order your Coors Light, sit back, put your feet up. Maybe this is a choose chill game to close out the calendar year of 2024.
Feels like a game where they are.
Damn right we're choosing chill.
It feels like a game where they are down in the third quarter and end up winning by 15.
I think this one, it might not be a wire to wire. I think this one might be a Joel Embiid puts his feet up and relaxes in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
No Kyle Lowry, no Eric Gordon, no Andre Drummond. Run it up, boys.
Run it up.
All my agendas. That's all that matters.
There it is. All right, folks.
I just want to say one last thing. The Blazers play a lot of short games. 6 of their last 8 games have taken 2 hours and 10 minutes or less. Given that we are starting at 10 p.m., I am very excited about that. I can't believe I actually looked up that stat, but it's a late start.
And with those young guys, they do like to get up and down the floor. Yeah, he is. All right, folks, we'll catch up with you after the game. Go get yourself ready. Go get your snacks. Go get your drinks. And get ready. Sixers Blazers. We'll talk about it post-game right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. See you then.